banker's banker. He's an FCPA, an accountant who knows how to crunch the numbers. John Mbadi, Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning. And that's what he's doing, crunching the numbers for the next budget. A lot of people are asking.
Yeah, Jeff, let me just confirm something.
Go on.
The lady who was hooking.
Yes.
Have you said she's got someone to assist?
Well, Governor Sakaja said he was going to pay her fees and give her some pocket money.
Okay.
Would you like to...
No, I got some anonymous benefactor would have supported as well, but it's all right. I've just got a text.
Wonderful. And I got Fred Obach Machoka also. He says hello to you and he says, let's contribute.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. So, when this budget was raised by almost 300 billion shillings, right? Did you consult the public? I mean, come on, man. What wanna teseka?
I think, Jeff, let me make it clear. You know, we need to understand the budget process. Where we are, we haven't come up with budget estimates for 2025-2026. What is before us is budget policy statements. And policy statement is what Parliament passed. After that is when now we will go to the budget estimates, the process of preparing the budgets and putting the figures, putting revenue projections and expenditure projections. And that time again we will involve the public and we will have extensive debate. But even with the budget policy statement, we have engaged the public. This process started way back. I will tell you the budget process started in September. And apart from the part that I've led myself as Cabinet Secretary, it should be understood that we've invited opinions. Many Kenyans have submitted their opinions in terms of inputting into the budget. And we have held meetings at KICC, and I've also taken personal initiative to engage with Kenyans. And going forward, I'm even going to do much more in terms of engagement, and the National Treasury as a whole will engage Kenyans. So by the time we'll be done with the budget estimates and submit them to Parliament by latest 30th of April, we will have consulted Kenyans more extensively. And going to Parliament, again Parliament, or National Assembly for that matter, will also have a period of engaging with the public on the same.
This is your first budget?
Yes, this is going to be my first budget.
Although you've done a supplementary?
Yes.
Right?
That's correct.
So how are you going to fund this budget?
How we are going to fund this budget, Jeff, I have mentioned that we are projecting ordinary revenue of 2,835 billion. And these are not figures that have just been cooked. Jeff, if you look at last financial year, we are projected to collect revenue of 2,631. We later revised that through the supplementary budget number 2, where we reduced the projection to 2,580 billion. That is what we expect to collect. And you very well know why realizing full projection became challenging because of what happened in the first 3 months of the financial year when the economy almost stalled completely. There was a shutdown because of the civil unrest, and that affected us into 2025. But coming to 2025, you can see the economic indicators are showing positive signs. And I would tell you that the Kenyan economy, the growth projection is at 5.3. So we have based our revenue projection of 2,835 on the basis of the current economic activity and the growth that is projected. Remember, if you look at the initial estimates, which were in the previous budget policy statement, 25-26, the projection was at 3,018 billion. We have since revised that downwards by 183 billion. A whopping 183 billion. Why? Because we want to live in reality. We want to prepare and project a more realistic budget. I made a promise when I was being vetted that we are going to stop over-projecting revenue. And if you see what we have done with the supplementary 2, it has lived that reality. We have reduced our projection and even reduced the projection for the coming financial year. So 2,835 35 billion is realistic. And then the the non-tax revenue, or A&A, ministerial A&A, we are projecting 550. But this is because if you look at the performance of non-tax revenue, in this 2024-25 financial year, it has overperformed. It is the only category of revenue which has overperformed. And so this year we are going to collect, or we are projecting to collect by 30th of June, 485 billion. We are marking up that to 550 billion for 2025-2026. In terms of grants or external grants, where we don't, the monies that we get from our development partners without paying back, that we are bringing down from 51 billion for this financial year to 46 billion for the next financial year. That leaves us with a budget deficit of 832 billion. Last financial year, or this financial year, which is coming to an end in a short while, or in 2-3 months' time, we have 862. So we are moving from 862 to 832, which is going to be 4.3% of the GDP as a budget deficit. This current year, we are working with 4.9. So we are coming down in terms of budget deficit to GDP. Now, this 832 is what now will be financed by both external borrowing and domestic borrowing. Now, external borrowing, so far we have only factored 146 billion, commitments that have been confirmed. But the domestic, that leaves the 686 billion, which at the moment we are indicating will come from domestic market. But if we manage to negotiate with other multilaterals like IMF, which we have started negotiation already, and get even more funding from, say, OPEC and other multilaterals, then we will revise downwards domestic borrowing to a lesser figure than what is currently being projected.
646 is still a big hole. It's a big hole to fill.
Yes, it is. But it is within our fiscal format and projection going forward. Remember, Jeff, the best way to manage debts is to consistently reduce a budget deficit to GDP. GDP is the indicator of the ability of a country to pay. There are other fundamentals that also inform the ability of a country, or debt sustainability, if you like. One of them is the growth in GDP. If the economy is growing, like our economy is projected to grow at 5.3%, up from 4.6%. Last year, remember 2023, our economy grew at 5.3%, 5.6%. But then it came down now to 4.6 because of the events of last year. Now we are projecting a growth of 5.3 and then 5.4 in the following years and in the medium term. Now that is one. Number two is how your exports are performing, and that will be is coupled by what is the budget balance of payments? How is it behaving? Are we seeing a positive or a negative one? The other one is the reserves. So there are other factors that inform your debt sustainability. Now, let me concentrate on the budget deficit. On budget deficit, the strategy is not to stop borrowing. There is no country in the world that doesn't borrow. We all have to borrow. All economies borrow. But what you must do is to consistently manage your deficit as a percentage of gross domestic product. Now, if you look at where Kenya has come from, by 2021 or 2020-2021 financial year, our deficit to GDP ratio was 8.3%, completely unsustainable. And that is why we got into the IMF program. The following year, 2021-2022, it came down to 6.2. Now, 2022-2023, it came again down further to 5.6. 2023-2024, last year, it came down from 5.6 to 5.3. Now, this financial year, we were overambitious, and you see what it almost cost this country. Now, we became a bit more realistic and projected about 4.6%. Now, finally, we are going to 4.9, which is still way below 5.3. We want to manage the budget deficit to GDP at below 5%. So that, if we realize, and then next financial year, we are working with 4.3%. And the following year, in the medium term, we want to hit 3%. And if you consistently maintain budget deficit at below 3%, then you are on the path to debt sustainability. You are on the path to freeing yourself from debt distress. And that, to me, is the strategy that we are working on.
And then the other thing you're working on, I'm sure, is taxes, which a lot of Kenyans don't like to hear.
Yes.
They hate the word taxes. And you were at Jivanji Gardens the other day, and you said there will be no new taxes.
You see, Jeff, no one has ever lived taxes. I think even, remember, the tax collectors were not even, loved even during, in the biblical times of Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So tax collectors were considered, in fact, the most sinful. I hope I'm not being viewed like that. But
yeah,
you see,
there's a name that keeps being floated around, the tax collector, but you know.
Yeah. And I'm the deputy.
You're the deputy.
Yes,
exactly.
So now, Jeff, what I said is this, and I want to repeat it here. My orientation, my professional understanding is higher taxes does not bring prosperity. I know that when Kenya Kwanza government came into office in 2022, August, there were a lot of challenges. Jeff, you are coming into an office with a budget deficit of 8.3%. You're coming into an office with budget deficit of 952 billion, almost a trillion. And you're coming into an office with a lot of debts, commercial ones, maturing in 2024, in 2025, in 2026, in 2027, in 2028. You only have luxury in 2029 and 2030. You have syndicated loans to pay, and I will come back to that. The temptation is to get as much money as possible from the citizen to help you come out of the hole. And I think that is a strategy which was adopted. And by the way, I want Kenyans to understand that the program that was entered into between Kenya, our government, and IMF was a program of revenue mobilization. It was a program of sustaining debt through revenue mobilization. Now, that, therefore, the strategy was to increase the taxes. But look, first, it almost brought civil unrest. Two, it ends up distorting the economy, and it becomes counterproductive. Therefore, we came up with a tax policy, which has been passed by Parliament. And this tax policy talks about tax predictability and certainty. That is very key for economic growth, economic progress, and economic development. So what we are working on now in terms of fiscal consolidation and revenue mobilization. So you can succeed in fiscal consolidation only through revenue mobilization. But we are changing focus from increasing taxes to expanding the tax base and improving tax management, making it more efficient. The tax administration and tax management. By bringing in systems and giving the revenue collector, the KRA, to have systems that would help us in tax visibility. Because the biggest challenge we have as a country is tax visibility. That there are so many Kenyans out there, Jeff, who are very capable to pay taxes, but because they are not visible, they are not paying taxes. I will give you an example.
Yeah.
Rental income tax, we are only collecting 17% of what we should collect because we haven't been able to have clear visibility of that tax. There is the personal.
That's the 10% supposed to be
17% of what we should be collecting is what we are collecting. And so we can collect about 70 billion or more shillings from just rental income tax. Something else that I also want to speak to is the personal income tax. Jeff, there are professionals in this country. And let me not start with the let's start with my profession, accountants. They are making money out here. They're doing business. Doctors, when you go to see a dentist, how many of them pay taxes that they should pay, as opposed to those who are employed? If you look at the tax disparity between professionals who are practicing independently in their private entities and firms vis-a-vis the employed Kenyans, the gap is too big. Why? Because employed Kenyans, it is easy to see them, they are more visible. So we are going to enhance we are actually, as we speak, we have enhanced our systems to improve on that visibility. I also want to mention that as our strategy, we are not only going to work on revenue. In terms of fiscal consolidation, is both revenue and expenditure. On the expenditure side, also, there are a lot of steps that we have taken. First, we have, for donkey years, talked about coming up with e-procurement, because in procurement alone, we lose so much money. A lot of figures have been thrown around. Remember, the former president talks about us losing 2 billion per day. If that is the case, if it is true that we are losing 2 billion per day, Jeff, I made a joke one time, which went viral, that if we could just reduce our theft by 50%, not eliminate it, reduce it by 50%. If we are stealing 2 billion per day as a country, as an economy, and we steal only 1 billion, we make a conscious decision that if you have been stealing 1,000, please steal 500. Although that is not desirable, I want it to be zero. Now, we will be saving 1 billion per day, which translates to about 365 billion per year. And that is the money that we borrow externally. External debts this year alone is 280 billion, far much less than what we would save out of that. So we'll not go anywhere to look for money. So one is come up with the procurement, which had stalled somewhere, clogged in the system. Yeah. We have opened that. We have the system in place. The training is going on. We are onboarding government services. By 1st of April, we should have onboarded all MDS. And so in the next 3 months, we'll be test run, and July 1st, we roll out e-procurement to reduce human interaction with the system in terms of when you are doing procurement, so that when you file your documents, you don't hear of a page has been plucked from your document, and so you can't win the tender.
A lot of people have been complaining about that e-citizen, that e-procurement. A lot of people have been complaining that it's hanging.
No. E-procurement, we have not rolled out. We are doing the test. Are you talking about e-citizen?
Yes.
E-citizen is for revenue collection.
Oh, right.
Yeah, there could be challenges, but I think those ones are challenges. But again, Jeff, revenue collection has improved exponentially. That is why you see non-tax revenue has been showing over-collection. We had projected to collect about 418 billion. We are collecting 485 billion. So it means that that the system of collecting revenue is much more efficient than it used to be previously. But challenges will always be there in any system. Those ones will have to be dealt with by the technical people.
So how come we're spending more on recurrent expenditure than development? I mean, wages are just through the roof.
It's because we have a heavy government. We have a big government.
Is it bloated?
Jeff, it's bloated. You know, Jeff, the constitution we have today is very good, very progressive, and it's something that we shouldn't, we should not attack it necessarily. But again, it has also created some problems that should be dealt with. We have duplications of functions, we have duplication of employment, and sometimes there's at both levels of government, national government and county governments. Sometimes you find in the national government officers working there on functions that have actually been devolved, and they have salaries, and you can't just come out one day and remove them. You go to counties, you find all kinds of stuff, Jeff. You find directors of the fishermen, the border director, music or culture. Someone is a director there, earning big salaries, with the deputies. You have so many people, yeah? And again, that is notwithstanding the fact that the 47 counties are just too much for our country. 47 counties, each one of them with a full-fledged government, a governor who is a mini president, with a deputy who is a running mate and struggling to find work to do. And then you have ministers, they call them ministers, the chief executive members, CEC members. 10 of them, all of them went for 10, which is the maximum. You have chief officers, more than even 10. They call them PSS at the county level, and I've talked about. And then you have county assemblies. You know, we used to, those old days, when we first had the Majimbo constitution, we had regional governments, regional assemblies. They were a bit fewer compared to today. I think a conversation, Kenyans should get into a conversation whether, is this the kind of devolution that we needed? No. We needed resources to be devolved, not too much government. Yeah. And you know, we have so many MCAs, and Kenyans have been electing very few women, and we have also given ourselves a constitution where we are saying not more than 2/3 should be of one gender, which I support because we should be inclusive. But then now you end up nominating so many people. So we have a very expensive government. Today, Jeff, we are paying 80 billion per month at the national government level for salaries. So per year, it's 960 billion shillings. It's going to 1 trillion. And we are collecting 2.5 trillion. And we are spending on loan repayment about 1.1 trillion. So where do you get money for development? And that is why sometimes our economy is sluggish. We are just lucky somehow that we have some development partners who pump in some money, some which are in grants, and so help us to grow. But otherwise, this government, there must be a conversation. There was a time, I remember, I've been a member of the Budget and Appropriations Committee in the National Assembly for 15 years. And I remember during the time of Mutava Msimi, I filed a question to my committee in the National Assembly asking for the costing of the current government. And I remember Edward Ouko, the former Auditor General, led the team which piled a report, a very detailed report to Parliament. How I wish we could pick that report again. And the Kenyans have a conversation on whether we need this kind of government that we have today.
Tell me something. If it wasn't 47, if it was up to you, or if you could wave a wand, would you go back to the original 8 provinces that we used to have, or something around that?
I would go for a maximum of 14. I say 14 because there were 8 provinces, but if you look at Rift Valley, Rift Valley was like 2-3 provinces combined. Yeah. And then also the the Eastern Province. So some of them, I would go for maximum 14, but even 8 would still serve us perfectly well. With the devolution of resources going to the grassroots. Right. You know, we can devolve resources without devolving the heavy government to the grassroots. Yeah.
That's a conversation we have to have going forward. I mean, this is unsustainable.
It is not sustainable. It is unsustainable. I agree with you.
Speaking of unsustainable, what is our debt stock?
Our debt stock today, Jeff, is as at January was 11 trillion and 2 billion. Composed of external debts, 5 trillion and 9 billion, 5.09 trillion, and then 5.93 trillion in domestic. External debts, concessional loans is 2.83 trillion, with World Bank having over 60% of that, which is the leading multilateral. These are multilateral lenders. Multilateral loans, 2.83. And then we have the bilateral loans, which is 1.07 trillion. And in bilateral, we have 665 billion owed to China. And then we have now the commercial loans, which are the most expensive, 1.17 trillion. And that 1.17 trillion, the largest chunk is Eurobond, which is about 832 billion.
How is that Eurobond thing going, by the way?
Which one? The latest.
The repayment.
The repayment, yes. Now, look, you've just come to what I wanted. Jeff, we were not, let me put it that our debts, I hope Kenyans can see my hand. Our debt maturities are like this. What do I mean? There is a peak. Unfortunately, we have just reached the peak of the debt maturities. And let me give you the statistics. On Eurobond alone, I don't want to talk about multilaterals. I'll not even talk about bilaterals. But let me concentrate on commercial, which are the most expensive loans. Yeah. Now, on Eurobond, 2027, which is next year, May 22nd, we were supposed to have redeemed $900 million US. 2028 February, 9 months later, there is $1 billion US. Then 2029 is okay, and 2030. 2031, $1.5 billion US. 2032, $1.2 billion US. Then 2034, you have $1 billion US. Now, these are loans that were taken 2014, 2015, some 2018 and 2019. That is Eurobond. From 2034, we didn't have any Eurobond.
But we have to pay all those by then.
Now you have to pay all this. And then now you have all the way to 2048. So you have a lag there. Now come to syndicated loans. Syndicated loans are concentrated between now and 2030. There is none beyond 2030.
What is syndicated?
What are syndicated loans? Syndicated loans are loans from some financial institution, banks.
Like African Development Bank?
TDB. No, African Development Bank is a multilateral. It is a concessional loan. Now, these are institutions like TDB, Trade Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, even Citibank can give you loan at 13%, Jeff. Those were loans that were taken, of course, by Kenyans. Yeah? Now, this year alone, September, TDB, which has the highest amount out of that, 320-something, 324 billion, billion of 324 billion shillings of syndicated loan. TDB has the highest. Now, TDB, by September, there is $200 million US that we should pay. The same September, there's another loan that they gave us, 75 million euros, which we must pay. Then the following month, October, we have 646 million US to pay. If you add those three in 2 months, it's 952 million US.
In 2 months?
In 2 months.
Which we have to pay.
We have never been in this position, I will tell you for a fact, where we have this kind of debts coming up for payment. And this is something that Kenya Kwanza saw when they came into office. And I think that is one of the reasons why they went for the taxation rates that, the tax policy that they adopted, which we have reversed, we have stepped back. And we are saying we are not going for higher taxes anymore. We are going for tax management and tax administration and tax efficiency. However, and broadening the tax base. But we must deal with these debts. Therefore, what you must do, what we have to do as a matter of urgency is to liability manage. The biggest mistake that I think the former government did as they were leaving the office, they did not care about what was going to happen to the next government. Because, you see, there was a Eurobond that was coming up in June. $2 billion is coming up for payment in June, and there is no preparation, 2024. No one is organizing any liability management. Until now, early 2024, the signal that was sent to the market was that Kenya was about to default. And you saw what happened to the shilling. The shilling almost collapsed. The government was very lucky that the market opened at that time, and therefore they went to the market and got another Eurobond of 1.5 to retire the 2 billion Eurobond. So only 500 million is what the government repaid from other revenue sources.
Now, is there a fear of defaulting on any of these loans you talk about?
That fear is why I am here. I have to deal with those fears. I am hired by Kenyans, and there is a government in office, put into office by Kenyans, must deal with this thing. Yeah. We cannot sit back and tell you that there are fears. We must deal with those fears. So we are put into this office to deal with the fears, and that is why we have managed the liability of 2027. So how did we manage that liability? We went into the market because the markets were open. And you are not sure when the markets will open again. So you must take advantage of what. Now, we decided in 2025 to manage the liability of 2027. We went into the market and got a Eurobond for 1.5 billion US dollars. And when we got this Eurobond for $1.5 billion, it is more expensive than the 2027 Eurobond that we are repaying. Yeah. Because the other one is at 7%, this one is at 9.5%. So we are retiring. How much? The total amount was 900, but we are only retiring 580, about 586 billion. That is what we have, million. That is what we have retired. So we are left with about 300 million, which now we can pay in 3 years. Okay, it's easy. Now, when we retired, or why did we retire only that? We retired only that because when you go to the market to buy back, there are people who will offer to sell back. They are holding your bonds. There are people who will take the offer and buy back. Some will not. So the ones who came forth to buy back gave us that, which was 64.5%. Very good percentage, very good response. But the remaining money, we saw an opportunity to liability manage better because you are retiring a cheaper loan with an expensive loan. We then went for more expensive loan to neutralize the effects of repaying a cheaper loan with an expensive loan so that we are debt neutral. So we went for those syndicated loans that I told you. That is what we are going for. The 952, we are going to retire about 880 million out of the 952, which should be retired in September and October from this syndicated loan at 12 or 13%. So if you are retiring some loans of 7% and others of 13% with a loan of 9.5, you are remaining debt neutral. Now we are pushing forward that into a period that now does not a period which we have that latitude and luxury.
Waziri, it looks like we are robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's what we're doing.
You know,
basically.
Jeff.
No, hold the thought.
Jeff, you know, I think I should teach you some economics.
By the way, I'm learning a lot this evening, by the way.
By the way, let me tell you,
yes.
Countries manage liability. It is acceptable. It is what even IMF is calling for, World Bank. There is no country. You go to the US, they're just managing liability. You cannot sit and say that today I'm paying all my debts. If you do that, you will stop paying everybody's salary. You will not take your children to school. Who will be paying taxes to only repay the loans and they don't get services? So you must balance these two. The best thing to do, two things. As you manage liability, also manage your deficit so that it comes down gradually. And that is what we are doing currently.
Wow, fascinating economics session here, folks, with Professor John Mbadi.
No. I'm not Professor Jeff.
FCPA.
Yes, that one.
My
you are right.
goodness.
Yes.
I'm learning a lot tonight. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
We want to know the way forward now. Pending bills.
Yes.
We want to learn about that after the break, right? And infrastructure projects.
Yes.
And then you wonder, State House is being renovated for 1 billion shillings. Office of the President Annex is renovated for another 600 million. Where's that money coming from? And by the way, USAID has shut down.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of trickle-down effect all the way, down, yes. Especially the health sector.
Can I note that one of USAID?
Please.
Yes.
Are you ready for that? The trickle-down effect of USAID being shut down. Trumponomics is real.
Yes, very real.
Folks, what are your thoughts? Keep them coming. At Koinangajeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JK Live. JK Live takes a break. We'll be back with John Mbadi, Body Economics, in a moment.